in math lesson 7-4, we're going to look at fraction division problems. This will be a two-part lesson, so let's go ahead and grab your whiteboards and your math journal as well. For our warm-up today, please write each fraction as a whole number. We've done this before. How do you turn an improper fraction when the top number is larger than the denominator? How many times does 3 go into 6? Twice. 0 is the remainder. So go ahead and number 1 and 2, pause your video and then go ahead and solve. Number 2, how many 2's are there in 4? There are 2. And how many 4's are in 16? 4. Go ahead and erase your whiteboard. Once you've erased that whiteboard, let's try some more. Now, in this case, you're going to write each whole number as a fraction with a denominator of 3. So, if you take the whole number 7, what number would have to be on top? So when you take 3 divided by 3, you get an answer of 7. What would you have to put there? 21, so 21 thirds. Would you go ahead and do number 1 and 2 on your whiteboard? Go ahead and pause your video and write down your answer. All right, so we're doing each one, writing 3 as the denominator. So just think, 3, we want to answer 3. What needs to go there? 9. We're dividing it into thirds, and we want an answer of 10. What number has to go in the dividend? 30. 30 thirds is the same thing as 10. 9 thirds is the same thing as 3. All right, go ahead and erase your whiteboard. We're going to move into our math journal. So go ahead and grab your math journal if it's not nearby. We are going to start on page 243. Page 243. So up at the top, using common denominators to divide. Use your fraction circle pieces to solve 4 divided by 1/3. So we're just going to actually just divide each one into thirds. Draw lines on the circles below to show how you solved it. So it's saying, let's take 4 circles and divide them into thirds. How many equal parts would there be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 4 divided into thirds, or 1/3, is 12. Number 2. In this part, it says, one way to divide fractions is to use common denominators. This method can be used to divide whole numbers by fractions and fractions by whole numbers. Number 1 says step 1 is to rename the dividend and divisor as fractions with a common denominator. Number 2, divide the numerators. So let's go ahead and solve for number 1. And you see that example there. So let's do this together. If we're going to change 2, first of all, let's look. We want to change so that it has a denominator of fifths. So go ahead and put that on the bottom. So what number would I have to put on the top so that I have 2 wholes? So to take 2 whole circles times 5 equal parts. 2 times 5 is 10. In other words, 10 fifths is the same as 2 whole. Then we're going to divide that by 1/5. Go ahead and write that down. Now let's go ahead and take 10 divided by 1 equals 10. So the answer would be 10. Now notice up here, when we did this up on the top, when we took 4, if we were to make that over 3, it would have been 12 thirds. Thirds did not change, so we just took 12 divided by 1 gives me 12. So fifths, it's not changing. It's still divided into fifths. Let me prove it to you. If the answer is 10, and I do the inverse and multiply by 1/5, 10 times 1 is 10 fifths, and 10 fifths is the same as 2. Number 2, we're going to take 1/4, go ahead and rewrite that, divided by, now we want to keep the denominator the same as 4, but we want to turn that into 4 wholes. So if I had 4 wholes and I divided them into fourths, if you counted all of those parts, 4 circles times 4 in each circle would be 16 fourths. Let's go ahead and just divide the denominators, or excuse me, divide the numerators. 1 divided by 16. 1 whole circle divided into 16 would be 1/16. So the answer is 1/16. It's still fourths. We haven't changed the fourths. How do I check that? Take the answer, 1/16 times 4 whole circles gives me 4/16, which is the same if I divide a denominator, or divide a common factor of 4 out, is the same thing as 1/16. Let's continue with number 3. 1/2 divided by 5. So keep 1/2 the same. We're going to divide that, keep the denominator as 2. 5 circles times 2 equal sections for each. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 half. Go ahead and take 1 divided by 10. 1 circle divided into 10 equal parts gives you 1/10. So the answer is 1/10. Now I'm going to take 1/10 times 5 gives me 5/10, which is the same thing as 1/2. Number 4. 4 divided by 1/4. If we keep this as fourths and we want 4 equal parts in each of the 4 circles, how many equal parts will that be in all? Those would be 16, and each circle's in fourths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 fourths divided by 1/4. Keep fourths the same, so 16 divided by 1 is 16. So the answer is 16. Remember, if I'm dividing something less than 1 whole by 5, that answer has to be less than 1/2. So this one, I'm dividing a whole number into fourths. So I'm going to have more parts. So now let's take 16 times 1/4. I get 16 fourths, and 4 goes into 16 4 times. I'm back with 4. Let's continue on the next. Actually, you know what? We'll come back to this tomorrow. I want you to actually go to math boxes on page... Hang on page 248. 248. So I am going to use this box that we've done before and divide up my whole number and my fraction. So I'm going to take 4 and then a half over here, 5 and 1/4 here, and I'm going to multiply. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 1/2, put that over 1, equals 5/2, or how many 2's are in 5? 2 1/2. Next, take 4 times 1/4, 4/4, which is the same as 1 whole. Circle these so we don't lose them. And 1/2 times 1/4 is 1/8. But I'm going to change 1/8 so it has a denominator, or excuse me, let me put 1/8 here. I'm going to take 2 1/2 and change half to eighths. Multiply by 4 on the bottom, multiply by 4 on the top. 1 times 4 is 4. So 2 4/8 would be the same thing as 2 1/2. Now I can add all 4 of those together. 20 plus 1 is 21. And 2 more is 23 4/8 plus 1 more eighth. It would be 23 5/8. 5 1/4 times 4 1/2 equals X. So a lot going on that one. Number 2, you're going to multiply, remember, straight across. 8 times 1 is 8. 7 times 9 is 63. B, 6 times 3 is 18. And 11 times 4 is 44. Number 3, use an estimate to place the decimal point. The correct digits are given. So let's say 2 3/10 is closest to 2. 158 6/10, let's say, is closest to, well, to make it even easier, you know what I could do? Just do 150. 2 times 15 is 30 with 1 0 behind it. Where would my decimal point have to go so my answer is close to 300? It would have to go between the 4 and the 7 to be 364 and 78/100. And lastly on this page, if I take 12 times 1/3, is it going to be less than, greater than, or equal to 12? Well, if I multiply by 1, if I took 12 times 1 would equal 12, and this number is less than 1. So our answer has to be less than 12. 2/3 times 8/8. Remember, 8/8 is the same as 1, right? So 2/3 times 1 must equal 2/3. And lastly, we're multiplying a number greater than 1 times a number greater than 1. That answer then is going to be greater than 1 3/8. So we started with 1 3/8. We're multiplying by something that is the same thing as 1 1/5. So the answer would be greater than.